Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this important legislation. This is Bryan Johnson's law, and this is named after Bryan Johnson, who was a real leader in our community and unfortunately was taken from us. It'll be 6 years this June when he was killed in a tragic boating accident. And this really shook our community in Ossining, and his mother, Sheila, and his grandmother, Thomasina, I worked with over the past few years to say, we've got to turn this tragedy, turn it around, and make sure that more innocent people don't have to die. Unfortunately, we realized that we were lagging in so many issues dealing with common sense when it comes to boater safety. In 2013, we worked to pass legislation that would require basic boater safety education before you got into a boat. And this legislation that we're working on right here, we're passing today, would allow for a judge, when they're sentencing someone for a DWI, to consider a BWI as well. And the reason is because when a judge is considering this, it doesn't matter what vehicle you're driving, if it's a boat or if it's a car, the judge is looking at that pattern. And we need to add some common sense to our legislation to make sure that we're sending a message that when you get on a boat, that you don't leave your common sense ashore. So we're hopeful that this legislation will pass in the Assembly as well and really make sure that we remember Bryan Johnson. Bryan Johnson had a real contagious smile. And in fact, he worked at the Doubletree in Tarrytown, New York. And if you go there, you'll see a portrait of him. And they have done a scholarship in his name. And part of the requirements is that you have a beautiful smile. And he really gave everything he had when he was working or in the community. He was saying he was going to be the mayor. And unfortunately, he died when he was 26 years old. And we've seen that over the past decade, there's been over 200 fatalities in our waterways. And we have some of the most beautiful waterways in the nation, whether it's the Hudson River, the Finger Lakes, the Great Lakes. We want to enjoy them. It's a $2 billion industry here in New York State, but we need to make sure that they're safe. So I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this legislation. I want to thank Bryan Johnson's family for staying on top of this and working to make sure that we can take Bryan and use him as an example of what good can happen and make sure that he didn't die in vain. So thank you for supporting this legislation. Mr. President, I'll be voting in the affirmative.